Hi everybody. So I'm gonna quickly go over the last little bit of Unit 2 and then the Unit 2 review as well. So the last author we're looking at is Francis Scott Key. If you click on biography.com, it takes you to the page that kind of talks about him, the lovely little pop-ups too. And so he was an attorney. He was the person that wrote Star Spangled Banner. He was born to wealthy parents, was educated at home, then he went to grammar school. He became a lawyer, married his wife, had 11 kids. He set up his legal practice in Georgetown, which is a really nice area of Washington, D.C. They started kind of getting into that War of 1812 while he was alive, and he disagreed with the war due to religious reasons, but he believed that because he believed it could be settled without armed conflict, he did serve in the field artillery, however. And then they took a doctor prisoner, the British did, so because he's a lawyer, he was the person that was picked to go negotiate to get his freedom. He went out on the Chesapeake Bay on a boat, negotiated the guy's freedom, and then while they were out there, after they got his freedom, that's when the day-long bombardment of the British to the American fort happened. And so he was on a boat watching it, and that's when he was inspired to pen the Star Spangled Banner, because they weren't able to destroy the fort even after a whole day of bombing it. And he said that the next morning, after the entire day of being bombed, the flag was still being flown. And so that was why he was inspired to write the song. It then became the national anthem by President Wilson, I believe. Yes, President Woodrow Wilson is the one. So well after his death in 1916 is when it became the official national song. So that's a little bit about him and his background. So he was a lawyer. He had 11 kids. He was inspired by writing the Star Spangled Banner because of what he saw during the War of 1812. And so here is just a little snippet of the national anthem. You should hopefully know it pretty well. And so some of the key words that describe the battle, if you're looking, ramparts we watched, rockets, red glare, bombs bursting. So those are just a few of the words that would describe the battle. Words to describe the flag. So broad stripes, bright stars. And then it still waves over the land and over the land of the free and the home of the brave. Based on the last line, what is he waiting to see? He's waiting to see if the flag is still waving the next morning. And so the question is, how does he feel in lines 7 and 8 with his hope fully confirmed? Star Spangled Banner, along may it wave, o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave. He's feeling proud, basically, is the main word that I would choose to use. There's other emotions that you can get from these connotations, but the main one that I get is that he's proud to be an American, and that he is proud to have seen the battle and the bravery of the men that were in the battle. We'll skip this one real quick. Scroll down here. So just as the flag emerged from the mist at the end of the battle, so it was emerging as a powerful national symbol. A symbol is a physical representation of something non-physical. So they're usually rich in meaning and can evoke different meanings and emotions for different people. So I'll get that right eventually, what does the flag symbolize in the song? Flag symbolizes, everyone can see different things. For me, I personally see that it symbolizes the resilience of the Americans after being bombed all day and through the night. When you wake up the next morning, America's still standing. They're still resilient despite all the hardship that they're facing. Today, it's a little bit more of a hot topic for a symbol. For some people, it still symbolizes the fact that it's the greatest country on earth. It symbolizes the freedom of speech and things like that. Other people might see it as more of a symbol of oppression. So it's definitely still has that positive connotation for the most part, but there are certain sections of Americans that are starting to see it as a different, or even if they're kneeling for the flag, they're also still seeing it as like, it does represent America, but not the America that they necessarily are happy with. And then your personal, what it stands for. Okay, so looking at the Unit 2 Part 2 test. I'm going to show you how to submit it real quick. But so the first thing I need to say is right here. You only have to answer one of the questions. There's 3 questions. You only have to answer one of them. I'll go over all 3. I'll give you hints for all 3. However, you only have to answer one of them. Uno. 1. So if you answer 3, I'm still just going to pick the first one that's there, and that's the one I'm going to grade you on. So you're going to create a Word document. You're going to write your answer. So, I wrote a beautiful piece here. And then I save it, and I am ready to go turn it in. I go to my class. Of course, I took too long to write it, so I have to log back in. I go to Tools, Assignments. And I look at all these, and I'm like, oh, right here. Unit test for Part 2. I click on it. And you would click, submit assignment, or you can click on it here. And you can submit it here. I can't see it that way. Hold on, let me view it as a student, and then you'll be able to see it the way I see it. So you go to Tools, Assignments, Unit 2 Test, Part 2. You go Add a File. You pick your file. You upload it. You click Submit. You're good to go, and wait for us to grade it and give you feedback. So that's how you submit to Unit 2 test. Unit 2 Part 1 is 15 multiple choice questions. All of it's due on 10/5. So looking at some of these, in their writings, Benjamin Franklin and Phillis Wheatley both use tone that is best described as what? Humorous, bitter, positive, or alarmed. The correct answer is C. Both authors viewed their lives positively. Franklin embraces the opportunities for betterment. Wheatley is grateful to have come to know God through her time in America. Only Franklin uses humor. And then B and D are incorrect because neither one is bitter and are both firmly anchored in their convictions. They both firmly believe that their lives were positive for the most part. Common Sense is written in the form of what? Legal declaration, pamphlet, poem, almanac. You should know that Common Sense is a pamphlet. Remember, he wrote it in a pamphlet because pamphlets were smaller, it cost less money to distribute across the colonies. How does Franklin's writing reflect the times in which he lived? He advocates hard work, self-improvement, resourcefulness. He describes the hypocrisy of embracing slavery, makes logical argument for why America should take up arms against England, invites readers to reflect on the beauty that can be found in nature. Correct answer is A. So his experiment demonstrates industry, self-improvement, and resourcefulness. Nowhere in his writing does he talk about slavery, war, or nature. Thomas Paine's Common Sense and Alada Equiano's aboard a slave ship might be best described as what? Protest literature, logical arguments, autobiographical writing, or lighthearted entertainment. Correct one is protest literature. Common Sense, protesting the British. Olada's is protesting slavery. Unlike the Puritans, Franklin and other Enlightenment thinkers believed that moral improvement depended on what? Correct answer is oneself. So Puritans believed it relied on God. Franklin and Enlightenment thinkers thought that it was themselves. They could take control of their lives and improve themselves. According to Thomas Jefferson, governments should get their own power from whom? Consent of the governed. Individual ruler answers consent of the governed. This is America. They believe that people, the people that are ruling are representing the people that voted them in. So they get their power from the people that voted them in, the consent of the governed. One quality that Francis Scott Key attributes to Americans in Star Spangled Banner is what? Correct answer is D, bravery. Home of the brave. Home of the brave. Just sing the song and you'll hear the word. Nowhere in there does he mention confusion. He implies that the war itself is confusing and desolate, but he never says that the Americans are that. In aboard a slave ship, why do 3 slaves jump into the sea? Return home. Correct answer is D. They want to die. The slave ship conditions are so horrible that they would literally rather die than continue to be on them. Phillis Wheatley's poem, A Hymn to the Evening, is best described as admiration. She admires nature, and through nature she praises God. She protests her own sin, though that's not really the main focus, so protest wouldn't be right. Mostly it is talking about observations and admiring God's work. When Thomas Paine writes that a government of our own is our natural right, what does he mean? He means C. According to universal laws, human beings should participate in their governance. So humans should participate in their governance, not be ruled by one king. And then one time, it's same question. Okay, so looking at the author and their effect of historical context, just a quick review. Ben Franklin, he reflects Enlightenment ideas. He wants to better himself and others through his own initiative. He thinks that society can be an improvement on people as well. Thomas Paine responds to a specific situation when King George starts to try to suppress the rebellion, and he urges the troops to continue with the war. Thomas Jefferson, he literally writes the thing that separates America from Britain, and he writes the foundation to our country. So pretty historically important. Phillis Wheatley, I'm being brought from Africa to America, would have never been written if the poet had lived 100 years later, because she would not have experienced slavery. It was a direct response to what she was in. Same as Wheatley, he would have probably never written his autobiography had he not been kidnapped and forced into slavery. And then the anthem is inspired by one particular historical event, but today it is still something that brings loyalty and joy to the country, and it is still something that is very important in the America today. So there are 3 questions. There's hints down here. 3 questions. The first one is, based on the readings in this unit, what do the readings in this unit reveal about diversity within the new nation? Use at least 3 specific examples from the text. Your answer should be at least 1 complete paragraph. So that's your first question. The second one is, throughout history, literature has been used as a form of protest. Choose 2 selections from the unit and explain why they can be thought of as protest literature. And then finally, the third question that you can pick is, what are some values that are important to people who live and work in the new nation? And then you list at least 3 values and use textual evidence from 3 readings to talk about why they're important. So there should be 3 paragraphs, 1 for each of the values. So if you look at the PowerPoint slides that are in the yellow class announcements, you'll be able to click on it and you'll be able to see these kind of little hints down here in the bottom. I'm not going to go through them because I'm running out of time. If you have questions on any of these, let us know. If not, we will see you tomorrow.